Hey everyone, welcome back. I believe once again I am late to this. I don't know if you heard, but there is some new Zephyr tech again. If you recall, Trumna has been able to charge its alt-fire meter by dumping its alt-fire into tornadoes in the past. This interaction periodically breaks and is fixed every few months, for some reason. Until a recent patch a few weeks ago, Trumna has been unable to do so, again. It has also been broken for about 2.5 months. The kills were not refilling the meter this way. This was also true for Sepulchrum, and Batacor, and Mossalon. And also, yes, this was part of the reason why Batacor felt so bad to use even with its augment, on top of the actual Batacor charge stacks being temporarily bugged themselves until fixed earlier. Basically, kills from status effects or reflected hits, such as the case of Tornado's scaling, would not count as kills able to add charge onto their weapon's alt-fire meter. This was fixed again several weeks ago. It also had a curious side effect. Not only do Tornado kills now charge alt-fire meters again, and status kills now granting charges even without Tornado, but we discovered another weird interaction with Zephyr's Tornadoes. This. Yes, that's one shot against level 170 Steel Path enemies. These have about 610,000 raw HP and a metric ton of armor, cut down with a single bullet. In fact, you can even do this with a Mark 1 Bratton with 0 buffs, albeit it doesn't really work as well, but it's also capable of killing them off by just spraying into the tornado. Really. This isn't a normal Zephyr thing, it's a very different kind of tech. So not only now do we have Zephyr crit inherit, cubic gas strip scaling, and other weird stuff going on, but now we have Zephyr's version of Slash Taxi. It works a bit different than Varuna's version, which is an extremely complicated topic I covered in a separate video about how to make the most of her slash procs and fangs of Rash. But what we have here is a quasi-infinite damage loop that scales as high as your status duration lasts. Because the ramping is insanely fast, and enemies rarely last beyond 6 seconds in normal gameplay against Slash, the scaling is basically infinite for practical purposes. So what is going on? It's a rather simple interaction. Tornadoes inherit the traits and mods of your weapon. When your tornadoes spit out damage from your Trumna, it is considered a Trumna damage. This means it can activate any mods that require shots originating from a Trumna. At the same time, the tornado hits are not considered to be directly from a Trumna, but rather reflected Trumna damage. This is important because normally the shots of the alt-fire cannot count as kills to recharge the meter. Tornadoes change this and allow the reflected alt-fire damage to recharge the meter. This is already well known, but there are some deeper details. Tornadoes multiply your reflected damage by 2 if your weapon crits. But not only does it multiply damage by 2, the tornado itself will spit out its own crit. Yes, the tornado can crit. It also inherits all mods, meaning a tornado critting can proc 100 munitions, but that's not all. Tornadoes can also obviously spread natural status effects from a weapon, such as electric and gas. Tornadoes will also reflect back AoE status damage, such as a ticking electric or gas dot. Yes, electric procs will chain to enemies to tornadoes, and gas clouds will also tag tornadoes to reflect back even more damage. But most importantly, tornadoes also remember if the original hit that created the dot was a crit or not. This is what results in the infinite damage loop. If I crit a gas proc on an enemy, it also hits tornadoes and reflects a crit gas AoE. The same thing happens if I crit a gas proc on the tornado itself. The enemy will obviously get affected by gas statuses regardless of the method I choose, but the ticking gas cloud can now hit tornadoes also and trigger further reflected AoEs every second. And the tornadoes will remember this gas cloud came from a crit shot and reflect the ticks as AoE crits. Why does this matter? Because it means both the reflected main hit and all the reflected ticks are now crits that can activate 100 munitions from the tornado AoE. Gas works better than electric here, because gas uniformly produces an AoE that can hit as many surrounding tornadoes at once, whereas electric can only change a specific tornado's closest. Case in point here. Any primary weapon with decent crit and status works. If you don't have crit, you can't activate 100 munitions, and if you don't have enough status, you can't proc electric or gas. Beams are pretty useful here since the status application is rapid, allowing fast and reliable ramping of small ticks constantly. Slower firing weapons are still good, but require higher status to be relevant for consistency. But being able to approach 100% crit is ever more useful for proccing 100 munitions. We have our whole range of weapons here, from Amprex that's innate electric, so I can mod entirely around slash damage. Even Ignis Wraith works because the innate heat makes easy gas and we make it super powered this way. Or perhaps a non-beam weapon, but still decent crit and status, Basmu's primary mode. Why? Because it has multiplicative GUNSEN on the direct hit that is electric, and innate heat on the AoE of the primary fire. Good AoE potential to hit as many mobs as once in a tornado groups if you shoot them directly, and good single target scaling for chunkier targets from direct electric hits. The most important part is, a single shot is enough. That's why I like Basmu for this, because it reloads itself, is fast and snappy and sounds good. You don't even need full builds, because I only need one shot. So I could remove these mods and go with the bare minimum, and I can still kill them if I shoot a bit more, like this. Of course, remember to bring hunter munitions on the build. Bane is not important because the damage is an infinite loop until either they die or 6 seconds pass, and the original procs stop ticking more slash procs, but of course Bane's would be a 2.4 times damage increase if you do bring it. Loop is not fast enough to crash games, but can make it stutter or freeze for a quarter second. GUNSEN is important for status consistency as needed, and of course try to bring yourself to higher crits when possible. 100% crit is not a rule, but just a recommendation. As we can see, a 45% crit chance Basmu still does perfectly fine. So how about Zephyr herself? There's almost nothing you need to do, since it is an interaction that is innate to Tornado itself. Some range is nice to use air bursts to drag more enemies into your tornadoes. If you're using an AoE weapon like Envoy, then funnel clouds can massively increase your damage, since you can hit multiple tornadoes at once and multiple enemies at once with one shot, allowing a lot of cross-linking gas cloud ticks for cubic scaling slash procs. But if you're using a single target weapon like Basmu, then I would recommend using the base tornadoes ability without Augment, since Basmu is unlikely to hit enough tornadoes at once to justify it. Turbulence is your standard survivability tool to keep yourself alive, and as you saw, I didn't even use a helmet in my video, but you can pick whatever you want it to be it survivability or more aggressive groupings such as Ensnare that can also work on Acolytes to keep them in place, or say Demolists. But for them, you'll have to be fast on the slash procs, with it working a lot better the more enemies are ensnared together. Strength does not affect this setup in any way and is a free dump stat unless you're using a damage buffing helmet, but again, with the infinite damage loop, it isn't really needed. Efficiency to taste so you can cast grouping as needed, and 150 plus duration so your tornadoes on normal content last at least 30 seconds each. For disruption though, you will not need that extra duration. Simple and effective. Everything else is spare slots for quality of life or energy economy or casting speed. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get your new information out always as soon as possible, like I've been doing with Duviri. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. Don't miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.